I read many academic articles, but I also read quite often industry reports written by you as consultants. And what's striking me is that consultants are predicting disruption everywhere except in their own industry. So that's the topic I would like to discuss with you. Oh yeah, here we are. Reinventing professional service firms towards new business models. And before I start, I thought, well, before we start with discussing business models and probably new business models in consulting, let's first have a very short movie fragment on what is business model innovation. Yes, business model. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, please. So business model innovation is important, and I would like to start first. Why business model innovation? Is that really relevant in your industry? And I will ask you. And how does it influence your performance? And if you want to change your business model, what are the levers of business model innovation? We talk a lot about new technologies, big data, Internet of Things, which will have an implication on the business models of consultants and consulting firms. But is that really the most important lever of business model innovation? And finally, what are appropriate transformation trajectories? Now, let's start with why business model innovation. I think the following picture probably says it all. Of course, we know Kodak was the market leader regarding rolls of films. Well, of course, they did see some competition in the fringes of the market. Digital photography, but they said, well, it's a lousy product, doesn't have the same quality. And we all know what happened. And were they really so stupid? No, because digital photography is developed in the laboratories of Kodak. So they invented it themselves, but management decided not to really put it on the market because it would really substitute or eat their existing business models. So most firms focus on their existing technology and they won't stick to their routines and they want to adapt to the existing environment. They want to listen to the customer, improve their products and services, and better serve their existing customers. And this is what Clayton Christensen called the innovator's dilemma. Maybe consultants should not listen to their customers too much, because in the end they are only hooked up with lousy customers and don't make any relevant margins anymore. So what is business model innovation? That's investing in new emerging technologies. Okay, you have to get rid of your routines, develop new capabilities. You have to think about where do I want to stand 25 years from now, which means you have to experiment with new products and services, new business models, and probably for new customers. And if you look at Steve Jobs, he didn't do a kind of customer market research and, and then found out that customers were asking for iPads or iPods, etc. No, it was market creation. Now, so business model innovation is, you see at the right of there, and it's quite difficult, and most firms fall into what we call a business model trap, which is the left. Now, is this a relevant story? No, not for those firms that are facing what I would call stable competition, in which we see incremental erosion of the business model. A stable competition means that you develop your business model, you exploit your business model, and maybe after 8 years you get signals that your business model might become outdated and you have to develop a new business model, but it's completely predictable and you have enough time to develop a new business model. However, there are also industries with a much higher clock speed, facing hyper-competition, meaning that their business model only lasts for, let's say, 2 or 3 years. And then after 2 years, they have already to think about how to create a new business model. And so there we see a very fast erosion of the existing business model. Now my question to you, how do you see your industry? How do you see your market? Are you facing stable competition, the left, or are you really facing hyper-competition? Stable competition, maybe we still see it in the oil industry. Hyper-competition, we see it in semiconductors, computer, telecom business. But where is consulting industry in here? So raise up your hands, please, if you say, I think we're still facing stable competition. Raise up your hands, please. Yeah. Can I have a mic, by the way, so that I can ask people to give an answer? Yeah? Okay, thank you. You were very decisive saying stable competition. Why?
There are, of course, changes happening, but the basic of the business, I feel, is the same still.
Okay, quite stable. Thank you. Now, not many people raise their hands. Maybe you're afraid. I don't hope so. But who's saying, no, we're facing hyper-competition? I would expect all hands to raise up now. Please? Do you agree? Hyper-competition? That's strange. So I only see 4 people raising their hands saying it's hyper-competition, which means that 95% of you don't know what's going on. That's really, and you are consultants. That's really frightening. Okay, now, okay, but you know what happened with the Swiss watch industry, with the Apple Watch. Who is wearing an Apple Watch here? Can you? Yeah, there is one person wearing Apple Watch. I have to run there. When did you buy it?
A month ago.
Okay. Do you also have still your Swiss watch?
I didn't have one.
Okay, you didn't.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, well, so, but you know, what used to be a stable industry, the Swiss watch industry, now with the Apple Watch is really facing disruption. We see of, how many people are in the audience? 250? One of you is already wearing an Apple Watch. Let's look at financial service industry. Here we see the well-established player in the Netherlands. We see ABN, ING, Rabobank. And yeah, they're facing it, of course, competition from complementary outsiders, credit loans. They're facing also competition from consulting firms, by the way. They're facing competition. They create new kind of products like crowdsourcing, mostly not successful. But they also see new competition from new entrants, but for instance also Google has already a banking license, Apple Pay, and if we see what's going on in India, Alibaba Pay is really growing like hell. So what used to be a stable industry, yeah, with interest rates, Alibaba Pay of 5%, and they had to reduce it, I think, to 3% from the Chinese government. But it's really amazing what's going on in financial industry and what we can expect. And according to Clayton Christensen, but his theory received a lot of critics lately, he literally says, look out consultants, you're next. And why should he be next? Well, we see new emerging technologies, internet, big data. We see new entrants in your market. Of course, we have been facing a recession. We see regulatory change by regulatory agencies, what you can do as a consulting firm and what you cannot do. We see reduced trust from the stakeholders. And we see that our clients that we are serving become smarter and smarter, have more knowledge, maybe more knowledge than the consultant that served them. And so why not disruption in the consulting industry? Let's, professional services, let's look at other professional service firms, law firms for instance. The MLaw top 100 list of most successful law firms in terms of profit, we see, for instance, new players like Lawyers on Demand. We see that established players also start outsourcing activities to other players. We see Freshfield Continuum, they're using their alumni as a kind of flexible network. There are many new business models. And if we look in particular to the Netherlands, new business models regarding law firms, we see that the fee earners separate themselves from the fee burners and create boutiques. We see low-cost generalists. We see network firms. We see new entrants from accountancy. We see outsourcing activities of law firms or insourcing to other departments. There is much going on in the professional service industry regarding law firms, accountants, but also consultants. Now, how does business model innovation affect your performance? Just an example, this is DSM, used to be a chemical company. They started with coal mining, then to bulk chemicals, high value added chemicals, specialties, more lately to life science and material science, and now towards sustainability. And they also created a kind of philosophy, a pacing rule of business model innovation, that 20% of their annual turnover has to come from new business models, which means that every 5 years, the company has a different phase. It's completely transformed. And this is a very large firm. So if they can do it, then consulting firms for sure should be able to do it. And they created also new business models, for instance, this kind of material for increasing the absorptive capacity of solar. And instead of selling this material, they now share the cost benefits with their customers, which is a new service business model. Now, what is a business model? Let's go back to a definition of a business model. And probably you all know the business model canvas or Porter's value chain. And of course, a business model has to do with the activities a firm undertakes, the components, and how you relate them, how you create complementarities. But the most important question of a business model is, how do you create value? And I know consultants create a lot of value, but much more important is, how do you appropriate that value? And I think in professional service firms, it will be more difficult to appropriate the value. And of course, it has to contribute to your competitive strategy. Okay, that's the definition of a business model. Well, let's look at some business models again in adjacent industries. And now I don't take law firms, but we did a study at accountant firms, small accountancy firms. And if I have to characterize the business model, you could look at their focus. So do they focus on the mass or the niche? You say most of them focus on niche markets. Their channel is a digital, personal. It's becoming more personal digital, by the way. Their core activity, it's large volume, but it's also more advisory. The key resources more and more towards ICT, less people-focused. And the revenue model moves from a fee model per hour to a subscription-based model. And we could do the same exercise for consulting firms and use the same dimensions. The funny thing is that we see is that most of the small accounting firms don't make a choice. They could make choices. For instance, they could choose for a specialist model with high added value, with high margins, which is maybe in consulting term the solution shop. Or they could say, well, we try to do both a kind of service house, standardizing their services like a kind of value-added process business. Or they could really migrate to a full IT model, which is the gig accountant, we call it, but it could be in consulting like a kind of facilitated network model. And I think it really pays off to make a choice here and to distinguish yourself from your competitors and have really an unimitable, unique, idiosyncratic business model. If you don't have that, you are only competing on price, and in the end, you don't have any margins anymore. That's not a nice perspective. Now the question is, how can you change your business model? And actually, there are 4 alternatives. Now let's first start with the most simple alternative, which is on the left. Is business model fixation. Don't do anything. That's the Kodak model. You could also say, well, our business model, okay, we can further improve it, we can replicate it, but we still stick to the business model, but it's further improved. Actually, this is the nice example is McDonald's. They replicate their business model over time and over place. Very successful, but now they face some problems with their business model, and they have to reconsider the business model. But IKEA is another example. Their business model, using customers as co-producers, reducing delivery times. That business model is so successful, they still learn, but they still replicate it. You could also say like DSM, no, we want to create a fundamentally new business model. Well, that's business model renewal. And the 4th option would be a dual focus. So you say, well, we stick to our existing business model because it's still profitable, but we see it's ending, so at the same time, we create a new business model. So we have actually 2 business models in the air. And I think Air France KLM is a very nice example. 10 years ago, KLM tried to create a new business model for the low-cost carrier market. Bus, it was a big disaster, but with Transavia, they seem to be reasonably successful, and now at the front office they have 2 business models, in the back office they try to connect it. Now, we do a new exercise, and you have to promise me one thing. You have to raise your hand anyway. Yeah, so not like the first time, just wait and see. No, that's not acceptable. So you have to raise your hands, and you have to make a choice, 1 out of the 4. And now I start. So raise your hand if you say, we are in business model fixation. We don't do anything. We do nothing. I see. That's very, I mean, it's very challenging. Because normally nobody raises his or her hand with this question.
I think we are there. We are still thinking that the way we're doing things, we see that the world's changing, but I also see that we stick to the old way of doing things.
Yeah.
So that's
and how old is the business model?
15 years.
Okay.
You know us, Henk, so...
Yeah, you have to help me, but yeah. Okay, 1 out of 250. Okay, well, you could be in the denial range, so that you think, well, okay, still successful. There are competitors, but it's not really important or really challenging us. Who says we are working business model replication? Can you raise your hand? You have to raise your hands, you know. So if you don't raise your hand now, you have to raise it. The other question. I only see 2 options there on replication. Who says we are focusing on business model renewal? Oh, well, that's substantial. That's substantial. That's yeah. I'm now looking also for a lady. Yeah. Business model renewal.
Yes, I think one of the keynote speakers yesterday said something about it. It was, for me, a good message. You have to choose between low-cost consultancy or high-value consultancy.
And what are you renewing?
I think that we are exercising till high-value consulting in the healthcare sector.
And that's really a new model compared to your competitors?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Thank you. So, and who says we have a dual business model? Now I expect to see many hands. Yeah, I see many hands, but not enough, which still means that we have people that are not able to choose. A dual business model, yeah, we see that quite often within large consulting firms. Okay. If I have to make the statistics, I would say majority replication, majority dual focus, and some people business model renewal. Actually, we did this study also in the Netherlands, so I think I have some statistics here. Yes, and there you see that regarding business model fixation, 1 out of 3 firms is in business model fixation. Yeah, 33% of the observations. Pure replications, we hardly find them. Business model renewal is even more exceptional, and indeed, the majority of firms has a dual focus, so 33% of observations. And then we have the gray bar, which are consulting firms or firms that are, I would say, stuck in the middle. They say, well, we do a little bit improving of our existing model, and also we experiment a little bit with a new business model. I think it's important to make a choice here. And why is that? Because if you look at the performance effect in comparison to fixation, you see that those firms that focus on business model renewal have an 8% performance improvement. Replication, even 30%. And a dual focus, if you're really successful with your dual focus, an 80% performance bonus. But of course, I have to make one warning that we only have a time lag of 1 year. And so if we would have a time lag of 3-4 years, probably the effect of business model renewal would be much stronger. Now, do you have to be concerned? The first answer is no. Because if you see if the performance effects, you see just improving your business model has the best performance effect. And you see that renewal is quite difficult and risky. Only at very high levels, it has a better effect than replication. But now comes the story, because maybe you think this guy is crazy. He's talking about business model innovation and he says it's not important. In dynamic industries, there we see the decreasing effect of replication. So if you replicate too much, you see decreasing returns, and then you see the effect of business model renewal. So in dynamic industries, and if the consulting industry is a dynamic industry, then renewal is very important. And then you only need, I would say, intermediate levels of business model replication. I see a question there. I'm not, yeah, well, let's yeah. I have to take into account time, but yeah, I keep the mic, but you may speak.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I learned that from Paul de Leeuw, you don't know him.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very important topic for me because I've been struggling for the last couple of years to improve my business in terms of turnover and also in terms of reduce stress on myself because I run my farm and having around 20 staff and I'm also a consultant. So I always, I've been trying to get a new business model, you know, but unfortunately, I don't find the solution in your graph, like replication, renewal. I think there is something else that we need to actually innovate.
And give us the outcome, it is?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I thought maybe...
Oh, I thought you knew.
Yeah, because I don't find solution in the replication and also renewal. And then, you know, I'd like to ask you, is there anything else that beyond these two, like renewal and replication?
Yeah. Yeah, good question, but I'm not done yet. So this is the 4 ways of business model innovation, and now the question is which one is most suitable for you. I only show you the contingencies if you're in a very dynamic industry, and you know we saw that 95% of the people here don't know if they are in a dynamic industry. But if that's the case, then renewal is very important. That is the story. But the question is how to do that. And that's why I want to discuss with you, what are the levers of business model innovation? What can you do? And, well, there are several levers. One of them is technology. And for a business model replication, you need to have some idea about new technology, but investing too much in technology, as you see, is not profitable. But for business model renewal, technology is very important. Yeah, so you have to absorb emerging technologies and use them in your business model. And just an example, Ericsson, you know, they're facing cloud computer. They were a kind of, they're selling infrastructure. Well, so they really had to migrate towards a service model of cloud computing services, which is a fundamental transformation. Well, you might say, okay, but this is a telco, so we are consulting. Well, what's happening in your business? Well, even well-established player like McKinsey started McKinsey Solutions. But there are also niche players like Beyond Core for analyzing big data, or Matista for market analysis. And so you have to do something with this technology. You have to appropriate it yourself, or you have to work together with specialist firms that are able to do it. So technology is important. But it's not only technology. It also has to do with new modes of management. And I know I only have 45 minutes, so I won't discuss all the fads and fashions we have seen in management. But I think if I look at the shapes and management of consulting firms, it seems to be that consultants only use the quite earlier fashions and ignore the new developments in our field, like self-managing teams, one of the latest one. And for instance, just to use again this company DSM, you know, in one of their plans, they indeed started with investing in new technology, biotech production, but at the same time, they invested in new modes of management, self-managing teams, getting rid of all the management layers and investing in their operators. They gave them extra training and education, which resulted in a productivity increase of 12% on a yearly basis. And the funny thing is they want to replicate this model also in other plants in other countries. They are not successful. But why? You know, if it works with production workers, why shouldn't it work with knowledge workers? And to give you one example of self-managing teams in consulting firms, the firm Finex, I don't know if they are here, but they're working with self-organizing, self-managing teams. They don't have a boss, The teams are maximally 12 consultants. They decide to sell on their salary, but they put it on the internet. And the CEO, well, they don't have a CEO, he calls himself ambassador, and his greatest challenge is not to intervene. Yeah? So they don't have staff. And it's quite successful. So why, I mean, just why don't we see, if consulting firms grow, why they all stick to the traditional partner structure? Is that really so successful? It's a very old model, and there are many management innovations, and I think that really could help creating new business models. But it's also to do with how you organize, how you structure it. For instance, Dell, the business model of Dell, is based on disintermediation. Just take out a part in the value chain. Or Sarah, my daughters, they like Sarah, and I ask them, why do you like that Sarah? They say, well, you can buy catwalk fashion for the lowest price. And every week when you go into that shop, you see new fashion. And that's a very interesting business model. It's hard to copy, but it's based on the vertical integrated organizational form. They do nearly everything in-house in Spain and Morocco, and that's why they were able to deliver new fashion items within 24 hours in Europe and 48 hours outside Europe. So why do we still see these traditional organization forms in consulting firms? And finally, you could also develop a new business model based on what I would call a co-creation. Sorry, but before we do that, an example of new organizational forms, because things have been changing in consulting, is, for instance, a consulting firm like Eden & Callum. They don't have any offices anymore. It's a completely different shape. Or a company like Turner, they have a core of really high educated consultants, and then they have, on the fringe, they have a kind of flexible workforce. So there are new models, and they are quite successful. But as I said, you could also renew your business model based on co-creation. For instance, Procter & Gamble, very slow innovator, and they created their program Connect and Develop. And say that to try to connect with all kinds of audiences that are able to find new solutions. And it really gave a boost to their innovation performance. And yeah, now, well, I see some examples there in the consulting industry. For instance, the co-creation going on between KPMG and a startup company like Olin, not only for the services, but also for attracting new consultants, attracting personnel. Because, you know, if you start to work there, apparently the model is that you can work for a startup for 2 years and then you can work also 2 years for KPMG. Because what you see with personnel, and I see that with my students, 10 years ago they all wanted to work for the big consulting firms, and now they all say, I want to start my own company. So that is something you have to do something with that, because yeah, the global war for talent is going on. So I showed you 4 levels of business model innovation. Which one you think is most important of those 4? Technology, new ways of management, new ways of organizing, or co-creation? All 4, I hear, yeah? Well, I know you don't like raising hands, so don't do that experiment anymore, but it doesn't work with consultants. It's too tricky for them. But for business model replication, we see that management is the most important lever for business model replication. Of course, adapting your organizational form, technology is not very important. For business model renewal, technology becomes much more important, but still management is the most important lever for business model innovation. And actually, probably that's also not very surprising. Because if you look at a company like Uber, why is Uber so successful with this taxi app? Funny thing is, we have a very successful company, TomTom. And actually, they were first movers with their taxi app. And they have all the technology in-house, but not successful. Uber, new startup, they didn't have the technology in-house. Well, I don't have to give you the story. So probably it's not technology that's really making the difference. It's probably much more to do with management and organization, and probably also co-creation. And this goes right to the heart of innovation. We have done many studies on innovation and innovation performance. And there we see that investments in technology or technological innovation is very important. But it only explains 25% of innovation success. What we do find in this study, the Erasmus Competition and Innovation Monitor, which we do on a yearly basis, what we do find is that 75% of innovation success is determined by your leadership style, your mode of organizing, and your investments in personnel. And so probably that's the story for firms, but it's also the story for consulting firms. And maybe that's why we have consultants, right? For this 75% effect. But I would say also use it for designing your own consulting firm, because it looks like that all the new business models within consulting are based on an idea of new technology, but that's only part of the story. That's this 25%. If you really want to make a big impact, invest in the other 75%. Now, okay, we discussed why business model innovation, how it affects performance, on which levers you can manipulate, and of course, the answer was right. If you manipulate technology, management, organization, and co-creation, you have the largest effect. But the final question is, of course, what are future migration paths for reinventing professional service firms? And that's why I want to show you the business model innovation matrix. And actually, this is a summary of my presentation, because you see at the vertical axis, you can renew your business model or you can replicate your business model. But at the horizontal axis, you see that you can do it very proactive, with a clear strategy in mind. But I also see consultants changing their business model because the demanding clients require them to change their business model. So it could also be client-driven. And so that results in 4 modes of business model innovation. And the upper left, strategy-driven business model renewal. That's explore and dominate. So that means an organization-wide transformation of your consulting firm. So it requires transformational leadership, involvement of all management levels, investing in innovative culture, knowledge sharing, and creating a new identity as a consulting firm. But you can also change your business model, renew it, because you want to upgrade to new customers. I call it explore and connect. Which means that you really have, of course, to create a very innovative customer-driven culture and create a new external identity. You could also say, now we only want to improve our business model with a clear strategy in mind, which is more directive improvement, which is down under at the left. It's directive improvement. It's much more transactional leadership. You have to make your targets as a consultant. I would say it's more the traditional model. It's well, investing in the same culture. And it's more performance-driven. Or you could say, no, I want to replicate, improve my business model because I want to be closer to my existing customers. And that's what we call exploit and connect. Now, to give you some examples of the options we have there, you know, we all want to be in Apple or Google, strategy-driven business model innovation, or a DSM. They have strategic dialogues. They just had them a couple of months ago, and they have been thinking about their new business model to realize within the next 4 years. It's very strategy-driven. But it could also be customer-driven, like the Port Authority Rotterdam. They used to be a landlord selling land, or hiring land. Now they are kind of port orchestrator, not because they're so innovative, but the clients, their stakeholders requires them to do that. Or left under, like a company like Vopak, they did everything. They built ships, they rented buildings, air transport, they did everything, chemical distribution, but they found out they could only do one thing very well, which is storage of oil. Very successful, but now they face some problems. Or like a company like Randstad, which tries to further improve their existing business model by better connecting to their large customers, or NXP Semiconductors. They say, we only go for markets in which we are number 1, 3 times as large as our competitors, and so they are very much connected to Apple and Samsung, and they really have been very successful. Yeah. My question to you, and you have to make a choice again. Where are you in this picture? Where are you in this picture? And I have only 2 minutes, so I have to be short. So who says we are left under? Yeah, well, I feel you don't know it. So, but I asked you, and I won't show you the results here, but most of the consulting firms are on the left and right under, and unfortunately not in the upper boxes, focusing on renewal. And I think if the industry becomes more dynamic, that might be problematic. And so you really have to think how to renew your business model. Just to give you an example of DSM, it's not a static picture, of course. They started left under. Yeah, then they start these strategic dialogues about possibly new business models, and they said we have to do it more frequently. We want to be in the high-value markets. And then, of course, when they created the new business models, they went back to the right under, improving the new models they created by connecting with their customers. And they have a very special philosophy for that, proudly found elsewhere. So at first they developed new business models themselves, but now they listen more to customers. Or they look at the market and they say proudly found or proudly stolen elsewhere. It is their philosophy of co-creation. Now, lessons learned. You know, I think the consulting industry is doing pretty well again. You had your difficult times, but you're doing pretty well again. So my advice to you is don't look only at your financial performance, because you only look at the visible S-curve. And when your performance goes down, then you are in trouble. You think, I have to develop a new business model. But I can tell you, you are too late at that moment. So try to imagine your invisible S-curve. And there is an invisible S-curve because there are early warning signals that give you an indication that your business model is outdated. And what are these early warning signals? Well, the first one is that at the fringes of the market, you see new competitors. And probably you deny it. And of course, they are lousy consultants, and the service is lousy, and they are much too cheap, and it shouldn't be possible, but don't deny it. 2, you see that there is no change at the top anymore. We also see that, well, regarding leadership and leadership tenure, if you stay too long, probably you won't renew your business model. 3, and that's going on, you see that your talented people or leaving the company because they think that the old business model is pretty boring. And if you see those three signals, that's an indication that you better invest in a new business model. So I end up with 7 advices. I'm not a consultant, but I try to now, yes? First, business model innovation starts with leadership and a deep knowledge of your organization and also of your industry, of course. 2, the management team of your consulting firm should be sufficiently diverse. So if you only have replicators or you have only renewers, then probably you're too much biased. So be aware of a good composition. 3, don't look only at financial performance, but also look at the non-financial performance and try to see, to make visible these early warning signals. 4, I haven't said, and I should never say, that you all have to invest or develop completely new business models. It also depends on the pace of your industry, your clock speed. But what I see is that clock speed in the consulting industry is increasing, and that more of you should invest in developing radically new business models. If not, you won't be there anymore. Of course, the easy solution is to have a dual business model. We keep on doing what we do, and maybe in a separate entity we create a new business model. Be aware that you have to eat up your own market, to destroy your own business model, to disrupt your own business model in order to be able to develop a new business model. Do not only focus on technology, it's important, but it's not the most important lever. Also do take into account new modes of management, organization, and co-creation. And finally, successful business model starts and ends with communication and implementation. And you know, I can imagine that you think, yeah, where am I in this story? By the way, we're working on a new product, on reinventing high-value professional services. There's also a survey, and I really want to invite you to fill in that survey, because then we can better answer the questions that I tried to ask you today. And I noticed that most of you don't know the answer or not willing to give the answer, but we need your help in there. And if you say, well, you know, how am I doing? Should I develop a new business model? Go to this website, and then you can fill in online the business model innovation scan, and you get a report about what you should do. I hope I gave some thoughts that challenge you, and I thank you very much for your attention.